guys, how's it going? Hey, I forgot to say happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a terrific time. For those of you who it's a hard time, I hope that God was good in ways that just encouraged you and reminded you that you are not alone, that He is with you. And for those that just love it, I hope it was a blast as well. So, hey, first and foremost, say hello to the Globe Trotters. Yes, there's been some great names. Love the names. And I hope to see you guys this Saturday, 8 a.m. We're going to have some breakfast. We're going to talk about next year. We're going to talk about the 30-day challenge and hopefully hear some highlights and hear some testimonies. I would love for that to happen. So, review where we are. Theme this week is share. Big idea, and I actually reworded this from yesterday, nuanced it a little bit. It makes a little more sense to me. Sharing your faith reveals a living faith and produces an accountable faith. So it reveals a living faith. If we are sharing our faith, it's because we have something to say. Don't be the person who, after living by someone for decades or working beside them for decades or even a year, for that person to say, really? They were Christian? Never knew. Never knew by the way they lived their life or by what they shared. So don't be that person. It doesn't mean you have to stand on your desk and share the gospel. Unless God says to do that, then go for it. But this is the spirit of it. 1 Peter 3:15. This is our memory verse. Revere Christ in your hearts. I remember memorizing it. Set apart Christ as Lord. But revere Christ in your heart. Always be prepared to give it an answer to everyone who asks you to give a reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. And so always be prepared. Little things like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Well, I went to church and we have a great music team and the message was so good. Just a good group of people. I love going there. Just planting the seeds, letting people know, that this is important to you. But if and when they say, hey, so tell me more about this Jesus stuff. Like, what does it mean to you? Well, how about saying, you know what? I've thought about this before, and the 3 key words come to mind. And this is your 3-word testimony. So let's just review. Before, how, and after. So what was your life like before you believed in Jesus? I gave you some examples of some keywords, if you will, yesterday. How did you come to faith in Jesus? And then after, how has your life changed after you put your trust in Jesus? So just 3 key words that tell a story. There may be some similar words that people use, but likely they're all going to be different because they are our stories. They're unique. So as an example, well, first, here's today's challenge. Yesterday, I said, just think through some words, a couple words for each. Now, not only do I want you to decide on your key word, but I want you to write it out. A good goal is like maybe 400 words. Shoot for 3 minutes, approximately a minute per word. So it's not super long. And if you're like, oh, I can only do 30 seconds, great. 30 seconds. You just want to have something to share. You don't want 20 minutes. All right? There may be a time and place for an extended dance mix version, but that's not what we're trying to do here. So shoot for 3 minutes. So I'm gonna do mine. All right. So here are my three words: fear, questions, and journey. So my first word is fear. I didn't grow up going to church, but for a few years, I went to a private religious school, which was enough time to hear about heaven and hell. And I discovered pretty quickly that heaven was a place I would like to go to. Hell, not so much. The problem was I had learned that good people go to heaven and bad people, they went to hell. So while everyone said that I was a good kid, they weren't with me every second of the day. They weren't inside my head. They didn't know my private thought life. So I would play the comparison game. I would compare my life to like evil historical figures or, America's top 5, criminals. And compared to them, I was pretty good. But I knew comparing my life to God or comparing my life to how God wanted me to live, I didn't think I was good enough. And that was the problem. Eventually I got into my teenage years, and while I wasn't haunted by eternity, thoughts about God and heaven and hell still lingered. And I knew I just still didn't measure up. So that led to my second word, questions. My best friend invited me to his youth group, and it was fantastic. I had fun. I got to eat all kinds of junk food, and we talked about the Bible. We talked about heaven. We talked about hell. We talked about Jesus. We talked about how Jesus wants to impact our lives. And I had lots of questions. I asked my best friend questions. I asked questions at youth group. I asked my youth pastor questions. And they all consistently said the same thing, that indeed, I did not measure up. I was not good enough. And initially I was like, oh no, that's a bummer. But they were quick to say that I didn't measure up, but God, through Christ, was the one who would pave my road to heaven, if you will. That Christ's death on the cross covered my sins. So I wasn't good enough, but Jesus was. Jesus was the answer to my questions. So I put my trust in him. And then that leads me to my third word, journey. Playing follow the leader as a kid was fun because you never knew where the leader would go. And I've learned similar things with following Jesus. It's always exciting, but you never quite know where he's leading you. Some of my journeys have been inside my head where Jesus has been saying, hey, I want you to trust me and ignore some of the empty negative self-talk. Some of my journeys have been moving cross country, following Jesus and what I felt like he was doing in my life. But most of my journeys have just been day to day, following him when I shop or when I walk or when I work, and just paying attention to what God's saying and where he's leading me. Interestingly, my new journey with Jesus sometimes produces new fears, which leads to new sets of questions. But knowing that Jesus is trustworthy always, and that he always guides me and is with me, gives me the confidence to keep staying on my journey with him. So there's my 3-word testimony. And now I want you to write yours out.